The bright neon lights of Las Vegas buzzed high above, lighting up the night sky like a rainbow. Inside a big, busy casino, the floors were full of people laughing, talking, and playing games. The air smelled like cigars, fancy perfume, and something else. Something like dreams and excitement all mixed together. In a special fancy room called the VIP lounge, there were ropes keeping regular people out. Only rich or famous people were allowed inside. That's where Richard, the fighter, was sitting like a king. Richard was only 28 years old, but he was already a huge star in the world of MMA fighting. He had never lost a match. He was strong, loud, and full of confidence. He liked to talk big and show off. Richard had lots of people around him. His friends, helpers, and managers. Some wore gold chains. Others wore nice suits. They laughed at every joke Richard made, even the silly ones. They made him feel like the most important person in the world. Tonight, Richard was celebrating. He had just won another fight and knocked someone out really fast. The video of it was all over the internet with millions of views. He had a big shiny belt over his shoulder, and it sparkled in the light. But more than the belt, it was the way he walked and talked that made people stop and look. He believed he was the best. Across the room, sitting all by himself at a quiet table, was a man named Jason Statham. Jason was 57 years old. He was a famous movie star who had been in a lot of action films. Even though he was older, his face still looked strong and serious. He had sharp eyes that watched everything, like a lion waiting in the grass. Jason wore a nice black suit and didn't talk much. He drank a glass of whiskey and just watched the room calmly. Most people didn't notice him. But Richard did. Richard saw Jason and smiled in a mean way. To Richard, Jason was just a movie actor, someone who only pretended to fight in films. Richard thought it would be funny to make fun of him. He whispered to his friends, and they laughed loudly, looking at Jason. Richard stood up. He was tall and strong, and when he moved through the crowd, people got out of his way. He walked right up to Jason, with the champion belt still on his shoulder, a smirk on his face. The room got quiet. Everyone could feel something was about to happen. Jason didn't look up. He just ran his finger around the rim of his glass. "Hey, tough guy," Richard said loudly, so everyone could hear. "You're that actor, right? The one who pretends to fight in movies." His friends laughed again. Jason slowly looked up. His eyes met Richard. They were calm but very serious. "Something like that," Jason said in a quiet, rough voice. Richard didn't stop. He leaned closer, standing over Jason like he was trying to scare him. "I've seen your movies," Richard said. "All that fake fighting. I bet you couldn't last 10 seconds in a real fight with me." He flexed his arms. His big muscles popped out from under his shirt. People nearby gasped. Jason took another slow sip of his drink. His face didn't change. "I'm not looking for a fight," he said gently, putting his glass down. "Just here to have a drink." But Richard didn't like that. He wasn't used to people ignoring him. In the ring, people feared him. But this movie star was just brushing him off like it was nothing. Richard stepped closer and spoke in a lower, meaner voice. "You think you're tough because you have a stunt double? Let's see how tough you really are." And then, smack! Richard slapped Jason across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Everyone stopped talking. Glasses clinked. Heads turned. Richard's friends laughed and pulled out their phones to record. They thought this was going to be another funny video for the internet. But Jason didn't flinch. He didn't even move much. His eyes stayed locked on Richard's face. Suddenly, the whole room felt small and tight. Everyone held their breath. Slowly, Jason stood up. He moved smoothly, like a cat. He wasn't as tall as Richard, just 5 feet 10 inches. But something about him made Richard pause. He didn't look scared at all. He looked ready. "You shouldn't have done that," Jason said in a calm, firm voice. His British accent was sharp and clear. Richard laughed, but this time it sounded nervous. Jason didn't look like he was joking. His eyes were serious. "What are you gonna do, old man? Cry about it?" Richard sneered. The crowd made space around them. Jason stepped forward, his hands still loose at his sides. "Walk away, kid," Jason said. "This is your last chance." But Richard wasn't going to back down. Not in front of his friends. Not with cameras rolling. He shoved Jason hard. But Jason didn't fall. He adjusted his feet and stayed standing, calm and steady. People who knew about fighting could see. Jason's control was perfect. Some security guards started to come over, but Richard waved them away. He wanted to handle this himself. He gave Jason a mean smile and pointed toward the door. "Let's go outside. Unless you're scared to mess up your pretty face." Jason's lips moved slightly, almost like he was smiling. "All right," he said quietly. He walked toward the door. The crowd followed, buzzing with excitement. Phones were still recording. Whispers flew from mouth to mouth. They went into an alley behind the casino. It was dark and cool, with only one street light flickering above them. Richard bounced on his toes like a boxer getting ready for a match. His friends made a circle, cheering him on. Jason just stood still, his hands in his pockets, watching quietly. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jason asked, like a teacher asking a student if he had studied for the test. Richard didn't answer. He suddenly lunged forward, throwing a big, fast punch right at Jason's face. But Jason was faster. He moved to the side so smoothly it was like water flowing. Richard's punch hit only air. Before Richard could try again, Jason grabbed his wrist. In one quick, clean move, he twisted Richard's arm and brought him down to his knees. Richard cried out. His arm was stuck. It hurt. He couldn't move. The crowd gasped. Richard's friends went quiet. They stopped cheering. They stopped recording. Jason didn't hit Richard. He didn't need to. His grip was strong, and his moves were perfect. This was a man who had trained hard for many years, not to show off, but to master the art of fighting. Richard squirmed, but he couldn't get free. His face was full of pain and surprise. He had never been handled like this before. Jason leaned in, his voice soft and serious. "Fighting isn't about who yells the loudest," he said. "It's about control. It's about knowing when not to fight." He held Richard's arm just a little tighter. Richard groaned. All his bragging melted away. "You're strong," Jason said, "but you're wasting it. You need to learn what fighting really means." Then he let go. Richard fell back, holding his arm. He stood up slowly, his face red with anger and shame. His friends didn't say anything. They didn't cheer. They looked away, pretending they hadn't seen. Jason turned to leave. But then Richard asked, "Why didn't you hit me?" His voice was quiet now, almost like a little boy's. Jason stopped. He looked back. "Because I didn't need to," he said. "And neither do you." The words felt heavier than any punch. Richard just stood there, breathing hard. His heart was racing, not because of pain, but because of what he felt inside. He had always believed that being strong meant showing off, shouting louder, hitting harder. But Jason had shown something different. Something better. Real strength. The crowd slowly walked away. The moment was over. Richard didn't go back to the VIP lounge. He didn't want to laugh or party anymore. He walked alone along the bright Las Vegas Strip, the champion belt on his shoulder feeling heavy now. Not because of weight, but because of everything that had just happened. He didn't know it yet, but something inside him had started to change. The next morning, Richard picked up the phone and called his trainer. He didn't brag. He didn't talk about going viral. He asked a question. How do I learn discipline? Real discipline. From that day, Richard started training differently. He still trained hard, but now he trained to understand fighting, not just win. And somewhere in the city, Jason Statham finished his drink and left the casino. He didn't say anything. He didn't make a scene. But people would tell the story again and again. The story of the night a famous fighter was defeated, not with fists, but with wisdom. And the man who taught him that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not fight at all. If you enjoyed this story, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the next thrilling adventure or mysterious twist. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.